Hi everyone. Big welcome to everyone. Good to see all of you online this afternoon for our Ask Me Anything session. Firstly, before we begin, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming along to this afternoon Ask Me Anything session. Today's session is really designed to give you all more insights into Antler's fast track process. I'm Rani, Community and Partnerships at Antler Australia. Also in the call are James McCure, our partner at Antler, Nina, Joel, as well as Rachel from our team. Today we'll have James, partner at Antler, sitting down with two of our very own portfolio founders who fast-tracked their way into VC funding with us, Renee from Altai and Danny from Bella, who have both successfully built, launched, and scaled their companies with Antler. We'll be diving into their journey, experience, and what they are up to now. Alrighty, well, I'll pass this shortly to James to do an introduction about Antler and a bit of our fast track investment process as well, and moderate today's session. But before we kick off, just overall general housekeeping rules. At any point of the conversation, feel free to contribute by addressing your questions or comments on the chat box. We'll also have a dedicated time for Q&A later on for you to address your burning questions. Feel free to use the raise hand button as well so we can give the floor to you. Please mute yourself for now just to avoid any background noise. And if possible, please keep your camera turned on so we can see who we're speaking to in this intimate group this afternoon. Alrighty, well, James, passing the mic over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Rani. And it's a real pleasure to be talking to everyone here. And also special thanks to Renee and Danny to join us and talk about their journey. I probably speak to both of you arguably once a week, maybe not. So it's good talk in this session. You guys hadn't actually met before this, so we should have a fun setup. But apologies that I'm sort of half in shadow. Recently moved house and I need to work out the lighting. I cannot compete with Renee's beautiful scene behind and Danny's ice white earphones on there. But we'll get into it. I'll do a brief intro around Antler, and then we'll just get into talking about Altai, Bella, and the journeys that Renee and Danny have had with Antler and how they're moving forward. And we'll be glad to answer any questions in open fashion for all of you here. So without further ado, if I move on to, let's do a quick intro. So Antler, who are we? So we're one of the most active early stage investors in the world. We're in coming up to 30 cities. We've got more than $1 billion of assets under management. That means that rich people and pension funds and sovereign wealth funds have entrusted their money for us to invest to the tune of over $1 billion. When you look at that in Australia, we're on our second fund. First fund was 46 million, started in 2019, made about 100 or so investments. We're currently deploying out our second fund. We're looking to finish off raising towards 75 million Aussie, and we've started deploying out of that, including the money that we've put into Bella and to Altai. We run our residency program in Sydney, Melbourne, and we'll be adding Brisbane in the coming couple of years. But I think to be clear for what we're talking about in the fast track funding, this is open to all. Location is not a challenge within Australia, and that really what we're looking to do is find the best potential founders and invest in them for success. We know that although there's lots of discussions of where are the tech hotspots, Silicon Valley, other Israel, other areas, etc., ultimately entrepreneurship and great founders are pretty democratically spread around the world, and that's why we've looked to build ourselves out into various locations around the world to help capture that and enable teams to grow when they may not have been able to do otherwise. So this is now zooming into Australia. Here's some examples of the people that we've gone with, that we've backed. I think we are not a vertical thesis driven VC. We're not saying we only do B2B SaaS. Like actually many VCs will only do B2B SaaS, and you need to be having whatever $1 million of revenue. We're looking to find the best founders in Australia, and we will go in the deepest and darkest corners of the internet we also like a bit of B2B SaaS as well, and to the companies here we'll be talking about, but we've backed things as broad from at-home male fertility, computer vision on the edge, B2B wearables, D2C wearables. We're pretty broad in nature, but the reason why our process is we spend time with founders and work with you on terms of coaching, that allows us to understand how you react, what trajectory looks like, but also it means you get an opportunity to understand, like, get some advice from us, but also understand how we can benefit and how we can drive forward, because investment's a two-way street. You want to be happy taking our money in the same way that we want to be happy investing our money into you. Then the types of people that come, if you look at, like, globally, we've got almost all the countries in the world represented somewhere in the portfolio, and we certainly over-index in terms of, like, underrepresented in different nationalities. And although in terms of women co-founders, anything less than 50% certainly isn't good enough, we're at a decent stage in the industry, and this is something that we actively work on through a lot of the networks that the scouting team drive, in order to mean that we've got a broad range of opportunities for all. And if you look at our overall team, we're similarly balanced, and I think probably what would differentiate us to many VCs is most of us are founders and operators, primarily ourselves, not investors. So that means many of us know what it's like to raise money, know what it's like to have an investor disagree with something, and know what it's like to actually hire a team, run with small capital. And these are some of the things that we're able to bring as advice, as well as network and expertise, to help you grow, as well as the capital we can provide as a VC fund. And then, like, what does the journey look like? All right, so let me just break this one down for you. So the top side, this is the application process. So we look to run a pretty light one where it's application for the fast track funding website, which you've seen, your initial call. We look to have like a pitch to the wider team, to mean that we then make decisions as to who to bring in or not. So you can think of that almost like a pre-investment committee. Then once offers been sent and you've accepted, we have a 5-week due diligence period. So the main piece of this is the second area of, like, weekly one-to-one coaching. It can be me, it can be another partner, some of our venture partners, who include ex-tiered e-com entrepreneur for hundreds of millions, VC, GP at pre-seed and others. Then we get to, like, the investment committee, and this is where we have our, like, a pitch to the Antler investment committee. This is where we decide on our fixed term. So it's 225k for 12%, with a 68k platform fee that's only payable in a successful outcome. I think what's important is that this is only the first bit of money that we look to do. And we look to support teams from the very earliest stage, day zero, up to and including Series C. So out of the local fund, we invest up to Series A, and we do this programmatically. We look to keep our pro rata and keep supporting you. And then we have a global follow-on fund that goes from Series A to C, which backs the best of the teams coming out of the locations all around the globe. Then, in addition to that, if you get down to the bottom, so outside of the cash, there's actually, like, fundraising expertise. We do a lot of this, and we will help with intros and move things forward. And we can probably have a couple of stories about that later on. If you want to expand globally, most of the markets you might consider going to, we've got people on the ground. We've got our advisor, and we've got advisors where we've got 600 global advisors. If you want to pick something niche that you want to find out about, we've got someone for that. And then there's the opportunity to get people to join from our talent network, the community of other people who are going through this. And we also have media partnerships with people like Startup Daily, as well as connections to global press, to allow you to get the time in the sun that you deserve at the key points in your growth. So that's, like, a start bit for us. But really, the main event here are my good friends Renee and Danny, co-founder of Altai and Bella, respectively. What I was asked is both of you to do, like, a quick intro of yourselves, particularly also the business, what you're solving, what stage you're at, and what's going on. So Renee, maybe if I go to you first, a little bit of personal background and an intro to Altai for everyone on the call today.
Will do. Thanks, James. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to these lovely people. So my name's Renee Curry. I'm the CEO of Altai. Altai is a bespoke casting platform which empowers you to cast any project with ease. We're on a mission to transform casting globally. So we have been live since December 22. So we've been live 18 months now, and we have 12,000 users. A bit about me. So I am high domain expertise. My background was as a talent representative, so an agent, you could say. And I also had a lot of experience in the education space, managing SMEs and looking after artists at the college level. So yeah, high domain expertise, no experience whatsoever in the startup space, and any sort of prospect of scaling a business internationally. So that's why I have definitely found my home here at Antler, and it's been an amazing and great journey. Yeah.
Good stuff. Then Danny, over to you.
Thanks, James, and thanks everyone, Antler team, for organising these sessions. Real pleasure and honour to be here. So I'm Danny. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bella. So we help B2B companies scale their revenue with AI sales reps. So we're building Bella. The idea is that it'll go off and schedule meetings on autopilot 24/7 for your business, and she'll listen out for buying intent and triggers, and then engage automatically with people. So we just launched Bella to beta a month ago. So we've got 42 users, and they're all out there booking meetings, which is great. And we're just continuing to develop the product. So we're still quite a young business. We were incorporated in February, actually, when we received the investment from Antler. So it's still early days for us, but we're getting some traction, and we're really excited to be partnering with Antler.
Because then staying with you, Danny, what was how did you hear about Antler, and what was the prompt to get in contact with us, or did we get in contact with you?
No, I got in touch. Actually, I was a sales manager at a credit risk machine learning business. And I met with a couple of Antler founders. That's how I first heard of Antler. So they were looking at procuring our solution, and there was two separate businesses. And I was just really impressed with both of those sets of founders. And when I heard about Antler, I started doing some research into it. And yeah, that was for me, what was really exciting was that I'm a first-time founder, and I knew the guys that I spoke with were first-time founders, and they had so many good things to say about how friendly Antler is for that, and the support network that you get. So that was really, for me, the prompt when I decided to start my own business. The first VC I thought of was Antler.
And then Renee, so what was in your mind when you were as I know you referred to us by another VC in Australia? What were the options that you had, and what was important to you as you were making a decision to who you wanted to work with in the long term?
Well, look, I'll be completely honest. Our industry is a really interesting one. We would be considered B2B, but we're also B2C, and being from the entertainment casting industry, it's not something where you go to a lot of regular VCs and they feel like they have maybe not even a mandate, but knowledge around how our industry works. So there was a lot of VCs that I got in contact with that said, love you guys, love what you're trying to do and the problem that you're trying to solve, but we don't have any experience in this, so we don't want to take it any further. So we were really looking for a VC that was going to back founders and not just the industry that we were looking to scale up in. So that was really important for us. And also, when looking at Antler and the opportunities they were going to provide for us working on the business and not in the business, it seemed like it was a really great solution to our knowledge gap of us just, first-time founder and needing to really accelerate that learning curve for what we were about to try to do in terms of international scaling. Yep.
And for many VC processes are kind of do a call, they go away and do some DD, they do some other calls. We say, all right, I want to be coaching you and working with you over this sort of 5-week period. How do you compare and contrast those two things?
Do you mean compare and contrast?
So what? Like, I guess it seems like you're busy people. You've got possibly better things to do than speak to a potential investor weekly. What would you get? What did you get out of that?
Oh, so much. So I think listening to a lot of podcasts and trying to learn as much as I could, even before the Antler journey, I definitely realized and appreciated that the relationship needed to go two ways. So as much as we definitely needed the cash injection, we should be looking to partner with a VC that we could see a long-term relationship with, which is pretty tricky to know in such a short period of time. So having that so many touch points in terms of the masterclasses and the coaching, it not only enabled us to close that knowledge gap, but really ensure that we were partnering with a VC that understood us, understood the problem that we were trying to solve, and had some trust in us being able to do that. And we knew that by the time we went through the program with Antler, that Antler was backing us and we could have an open line of communication, and we didn't feel like we would have to have a relationship with Antler whereby we might be afraid to let them know exactly what's going on. And from my perspective anyway, there was that, should there be a wall between the founders and VCs putting money in, but it's almost like an extension of the company, is how I found it.
Very cool. And Danny, sort of similar question to you. Like, what did you find most useful about that Antler experience prior to investment?
Yeah, so again, as a first-time founder, a lot of the concepts around raising capital were new to me. So having the resources at hand was really helpful. So the Antler Hub and the Notion page is like amazing resource for me. Like I was able to just quickly get up to speed on certain excuse me, on certain concepts. But also, excuse me, I need to clear my throat here. But also
you're getting emotional.
Yeah, I'm getting really emotional. Yeah. But also, the coaching as well. The 5 coaching sessions that we had, like on the lead up, was just good to like bounce ideas with somebody that had been there on the other side quite often. And for a new person, being in this VC world was new for me. So it was just really valuable to have that perspective and have that guidance.
Go on then. Talking cash, Renee. So obviously, we charge a platform fee, 68K for the services that we do. Obviously, pre-investment, but post. That probably wasn't your ideal scenario to be in. Tell me openly, what do you think about it?
Absolutely. So I thought it was very interesting at first, and I did have a few conversations. One of them was actually with one of the partners who has since invested in us again, and just understanding what we were getting ourselves into. And it really resulted in us understanding that what we were getting through the program was putting 2 years worth of really high level resources and coaching and access to networks and relationships into a really short space of time. And from my perspective now, that has followed on and rewarded us tenfold. You have access to space, resources, relationships, and there are so many things that I could rattle off that we wouldn't have as a company, or I wouldn't have as a relationship, without having this access with Antler. And yeah, you look at it as well as you can get a lot of it back as an R&D from the government, and it just really makes complete sense as to, as much as Antler is investing in us, we need to make sure that we are investing back into the program to ensure that we're committed to learning what we need to learn to scale. And I think quite a few founders who are high domain experts, and I certainly went through a little bit of this process myself, is that you don't know what you don't know, and you sometimes just have to trust that just because you know your product, you know your industry, there is so much more that you have to learn. So I just decided to trust in the process and go with it. And yeah, Antler's got a great reputation, and there can't be the success that they have without doing things the right way. So I just had to go with it, and it's been great.
And then last question for you, Renee, and then I'll give one last one to Danny as well. Like I probably first met you about a year ago. Is that right? Like to tell us what's happened since then.
Whoa. So yeah, I was just looking at the Antler team on the call. So my first contact, I think, with Antler was with Nina about a year ago. And then I met the lovely Joel a few weeks later, and then yourself, James, a few weeks after that. And then we went full steam ahead straight into the program. And that's when I was lucky enough to meet the lovely Rachel in the Sydney office. So it was full steam ahead, really about working on the business, not in the business. So really taking a step back and trusting that, okay, this is going to be the best thing for Altai right now. We have to give ourselves over to it completely. And going through that journey and preparing for IC, not just having access to our coach, but all of the partners, that was actually amazing, because we're such an interesting B2B, B2C, bit of marketplace in there. It really, really helped us try to articulate our market size, our go-to-market. And I have really interesting memories of being in the space at Antler, of just trying to work through how we were going to really articulate what our problem was and how we were solving it. And since then, yeah, we hit the ground running. We had all the plans in place because of the coaching and just Antler really explaining to us what the next steps were. Like even after we got investment, it was what you have to do to prepare for your next round straight away. And as you'll get out of it what you put into it, but everything's there for you. And so we knew that we would need to raise a follow-on round, which we got so much support from Antler for. We wouldn't have done it without them. And we've successfully closed a round since Antler. So we went through IC and got funding last August, September, and we started raising after that. And you'll be told by the guys at Antler, raising it's a job in itself. I didn't know that's what I was getting myself signed up for. And having just closed that round about 4 weeks ago, we are actually looking to expand into the LATAM market, so Mexico, in about 6 months' time. So very exciting stuff. And I actually can't believe that we're launching in Mexico in 6 months' time. 12 months ago, wouldn't have been on our radar. So having the support as well, I think maybe 12 months' time, I would have been a bit apprehensive and honestly scared to do that, because sometimes in a small business, you feel like you need to master and be number one in a market before you move on. But VC scaling, all of that, it's just a whole different ball game. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Cool. And we invested, I'm very pleased to say we invested in the second round as well. Actually, well, would have taken more if we could squeeze in, but that's a story. That's a story.
Sorry.
And Danny, like last question, and for everyone else, please warm up questions you have for any of us. Like, what does the next 6 months hold for you?
Yeah, so for us, we just launched beta a month ago, so we've got some early users, but we're going to be looking to launch publicly with Beta Alpha around August. So from now until then, it's really just keep gathering feedback from our users to improve the product, deliver new features, continue to sell it as well. And we've got some really ambitious goals, so there's quite a lot that we want to do in terms of the development of our platform. So yeah, we're going to be raising capital as well. So that's sort of my main focus is, yeah, product, customers, and capital.
Simple.
Yeah.
On that, I'd really like to throw it open to questions. So please either use the chat or like stick up the Zoom hand, and we'll get into it.
And any questions, fine with me. I'm probably too open, if anything. So
Yeah, shoot them away.
no. we've
So-
got one here.
My question is like, how many co-founders do each of you have? Like, how big is the co-founding team?
Yeah, so Altai has 3 co-founders. We had an interesting situation where myself and my co-founder Josh, we worked together before many years ago. We're the domain experts, and Phil, we call him our technical co-founder. He came on halfway through our prototyping process when we knew that we had a really big knowledge gap in that sort of aspect of the technical side of the business. So there's 3 of us.
And for us, there's 2 of us. So myself and then my co-founder Max. So I'm sort of the commercial sales guy, and he's the AI engineer, CTO.
And you're both like share your house together. I just want to be clear, that is not a requirement from any investor. That's your guys' personal choice.
Yeah, well, he lives pretty much in that next room across the hallway from me. Yeah, so we're pretty much in our offices all day. But I can hear him sometimes, and he can hear me. He can definitely hear me. We actually started off in the same office space, and then I was talking too much, and he got distracted from his code. So now we're separated.
Yes. Coders and developers, they need to get into their groove. So I've definitely learned that myself.
Got any more questions? Joel, I can see you got a hand up there.
Yeah, I got one. Definitely keen for non-Antler questions though, but no one's got one. I've got one for you, Renee. If I remember correctly, when the first time we spoke, your business model for Altai was actually different to what I think it ended up in at IC. And I think that was due to some of the conversations that you had. I'm not exactly sure who it was with or what was the impetus there, but like, can you talk us through that journey if I'm actually remembering correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, back when we launched, which was probably about 6 months before I spoke to you, Joel, we actually launched, and our business model was to charge every user. So we've got 3 users, artists, agents, and casting. And that went down like a ton of bricks in the industry because our industry is really unusual in that if anyone here was going to apply for a new job, they would apply on Seek, and you wouldn't have to pay to apply for a job. Doesn't make sense, right? It should be the recruiters and the employers that pay that. Well, in our industry, the acting industry, that's not the way it works. So it's heavily been the impetus is on the artist to pay. So yeah, that's what we had to pull back. And so when we came into Antler, the artists were the only ones that were paying. So we were really thinking, oh, we're a B2C company, and that's where that's where the money is because of the sheer number of artists worldwide. There are millions of them. And we really, through discussions with James and other coaches, we realized that there was a really huge opportunity and an opportunity to create that defensibility that we needed to retain that IP and retain our customers was in the B2B space. And that was where we were going for originally. So we're definitely more focused on the B2B space for Altai, and B2C will just be, our little backup and just add quite a few zeros there. And it's interesting though, we have to consider a lot of our go-to-market strategy like a marketplace, because when we launch into Mexico or into a new market, casting officers can't actually use our platform unless we have a strong pool of artists for them to pitch their jobs to through the agents. And similarly, agents and artists don't want to come on our platform unless there's an availability of what we call casting briefs or job opportunities on the space. So that really marketplace strategy really informs our go-to-market strategy. So yeah. And didn't know any of those words before Antler. Didn't know any of them. I was like,
well,
what?
I remember one of the sessions we had where we sort of sparred on the idea of should you charge the artists or not, and we spoke for about we got fully into it for about like 25-30 minutes, and then I sort of reluctantly went, all right, I think you guys were right all along. But then we did turn our focus to the B2B side.
Yeah, no, it was all great conversations, and it's those healthy conversations and really us taking ourselves out of, yes, we know this space, but to take it globally, we need to take more inference from how you scale a business in general. So, yeah.
Great. I've got a question from Kelvin. Are there any pros and cons in terms of future funding joining a founder program like Antler? Danny, do you want to have a go on
Yeah,
that?
so for me, I've only seen the pros of it, which is, we've got a lot of inbound interest from other investors because we're an Antler portfolio company. So that in itself and the brand reputation that Antler's has been really, really great for us. We've got a lot of interest from it. So again, like we're still in the process of raising our capital, so maybe Renee can touch on this a bit better. But the network that Antler has as well, that the investor network has been really good for us to tap into.
I would second that, and I feel a lot more comfortable even moving into international markets. Our next raise might be when we establish a C Corp in America and have VCs in America investing, and having Antler on our cap table is going to really help, because some of the other VCs in Australia aren't as well known internationally. So, and also, as James was saying at the beginning of the call, the access to those funds that they have, that they can keep topping up as long as you're hitting your metrics and you're doing the right thing. That's really helpful as well, because that if you can secure one or two, even just one really good investor, you can go back to Antler as well and discuss them being involved in the round. And that's really a bit of comfort as well, because it's a full-time job in itself. I really had no idea, and still am learning things. So keeping that process running in the background constantly is what I feel like is the only way that it's manageable. And to do that, you really need to have the best people on your cap table and in your corner as possible. In terms of cons, I can't really think of anything. I guess any founder would really look at the dilution, but I think you've just got to get over it and realize what the potential could be, and a few less percentage points when you're looking at this company compared to this company. There's no comparison. So can't think of many other cons.
Yeah, and the agreement for rolling capital, right? So the follow-on investment, of course, like Antler's already committed to that with us, so that's a huge benefit.
And to explain for people like that, the way in which we look to, as Renee said, sort of top up or sort of follow on, is that we obviously lead the first round. After that, we look to have the market price it. It's kind of like marking our own homework. If we go, Danny, you're now valued at 5 million pre-money, etc., but that we invest programmatically. So once the team gets 300k of funds raised, we'll look to match 50% of those funds to go alongside. So if Danny calls me up tomorrow, and hopefully you might, then say like, we've got a confirmed lead for whatever 400k, we'll come in with 200, and that pretty much means your round is, well, it's then your choice as to whether you want to get some other value-add investors onto the cap table, but that would be sufficient to get you moving to the next stage.
Yeah, and just another pro that I've thought of is just the contacts that Antler has with angel investors. So depending on what that follow-on looks like, or what your space is, you might be able to do a quick follow-on with just some angel investors, and the contacts that they've got are great. We had an angel group really want to invest in our time. We couldn't actually fit them in the round, which was a great thing to say, but it all came around because of the Antler name. Just saying that we're in the entertainment space can sometimes scare people off, but using the Antler name really helps us.
Cool. Last call for questions, please. Anything and everything is open season here.
Yes. And while we're waiting, I will volunteer that if you decide to apply for the program, I think you should. And if you are lucky enough to get in, to just really set aside as much time as you can, aside from the business. Of course, you have to keep it going, but everyone knows that you can prepare for that. It's just really a massive advantage if you can put as much focus as you can into it. I've been in the space in Sydney with a lot of other portfolio companies, and I've said to many of them, the time flies, make the most of it. And quite often they'll come up to me and go, you weren't lying. So you'll get out of it what you put into it. And personally and mentally and physically, just get yourselves ready for it, because it's full on, but it's a good full on. And we're all, if you want to be a startup, then it's full on anyway. So
I found the community, the other founders in Antler, to be really helpful, like throughout the process. I would have pitched at least 7 different founders from Antler, like on the lead up to my investment committee pitch, and it just helped me so much to prepare and to get everybody's feedback, to sort of hear different perspectives. And actually, I took something from all of them. And I think, James, when I initially pitched you and then did that second pitch, you said it was night and day difference between them. And that night and day difference was, being able to talk with the other founders and get their perspectives and make adjustments to my pitch deck where I needed to.
Totally.
I've got a question. So for you, Renee. So what stage were you at with Alte, when you got involved with Antler? What sort of traction did you have prior?
Yeah.
Was it just an idea, or where were you at?
No, so we launched in December, so just over 6 months, or just at the 6-month mark. So we bootstrapped the MVP, and like the little green founder I thought that the money that we had would go a lot further than it did. And you can definitely hope that things will explode and you'll get significant traction. But we realized that we had a lot of early adopters and a lot of support. We were getting a lot of feedback from our users, but because of those marketplace issues, we had to put the lights on. So I think we had almost 3,000 users when we first connected with Antler. I had to go back into many, many pitch decks but I don't think that, I think about 25% of them were paying. So probably, maybe 500 to 750 of those were paying. And we'd done a lot of pitches as well. And it was nice to be involved in a pitching process as well, I will say, where there was a lot of feedback and not just a one judgment of, okay, this is your pitch and yes or no. Having that contact point with Nina and then Joel and then James, that really, we delved deeper. They gave us more time. And as well, with that diversity, I definitely think that there's an element, definitely from my perspective, of walking into a room of suits and not feeling like you have to completely prove yourself as a female, not just as a startup founder. So that was also nice. Yep.
We've got a request on the chat.
Yeah.
Danny, will you answer the question you just asked Renee?
Answer my own question?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Sure. So where were we at? So Max and I were working together for about 6 months prior to incorporating Bella and prior to talking to Antler about Bella. But we built Bella initially as an internal application for ourselves. So we were running a custom ChatGPT or large language model application development business. And then we were looking to gain leads for ourselves, and that's how sort of Bella was incepted. So we built the first version and we validated that ourselves internally. So we used Bella to book meetings, and it worked like hotcakes. And that's sort of when we realized that we were onto something. So we validated that, and then we decided that if it works for us, it's got to work for others. So we went and bootstrapped. So we offered a lead generation service to some businesses. And we managed to get a customer, and we were basically booking meetings for them using our own tool. And at that stage, we had some external validation of the product as well, and that's when we got involved with Antler. So we had sort of a bootstrapped customer and a sort of prototype MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I think I'll say like a few bits to see if there's any last questions, but it feels like we're sort of drawing towards the end. So last call. That always gets someone to come out. Jasmine, please.
Hi. I wanted to know, like, mostly they say that, we investors invest in the founder more than the idea. And when it is in very early stage startup, I'm curious to know what sort of things would you look for to when it is a day zero investment to make sure that people, you get picked and move to the next stage. What are the key attributes or rubric that you have?
I mean,
for you, James.
Yeah, exactly. I think the things that we're trying to ascertain around like founders is
have it all.
Is there a particular spike
I've
around
eaten,
them?
so
Whoever's
you can have
on that, I
as
think
much
it's
or as
Andrew,
little as you
possibly.
want.
Could you go on mute, please? So like we're trying to find that where there's a spike. So there's something about your either experience or your views which is kind of quite unique or distinctive. So if you think of like Renee, like high domain expertise in like talent representation and knows the ins and outs of it, but also has a kind of like insider outsider mentality where knows it intimately, but also can say where things are broken and mixed out. And then on the other side, it's like we call it kind of founder DNA. There's a bunch of things that go into that. There's like grit, resilience, leadership, charisma, creative problem solving. And I think like the time I spent with Bella before we invested in, then I think like particularly that grit and resilience I could see from you and Max from the early stages. Like this was what you were put here to be able to make this business successful. And I felt that through all the discussions that we had. And like I said, when Danny mentioned there was a sort of a two pitches where it was like night and day in between, that was something where we just saw like the trajectory that Danny and Max were able to do, that even though it was in quite a short amount of time, that gave us the confidence to like back them as the founders, because we think, well, if they can do this whilst running the business as well over like a 3-day period, then all right, these are people that we want to get behind. So those are sort of examples as to how we look to bring it out. And I think for people who, in this scenario, what we're looking for in that 5 weeks is, we call it trajectory, but it doesn't mean that everything's perfect and it means you're making revenue or everything else. It's actually like how quickly you're iterating few things. Actually, I remember like so probably like the example Renee mentioned earlier of even like considering what a different business model would be. That's an example of trajectory that may take 5 months on the outside to try and work through. We're able to work through that in 5 weeks. Thanks very much, Jasmine.
Thank you.
All right, cool. This is really last call for questions now. Can I flush out any more? If not, I just want to say a really big thanks to Renee and Danny for sharing their journey and bits of wisdom here. Thanks also for everyone who's dialed in. If you have any further questions, obviously, like please follow up with and the team, and we have the fast track funding piece to be able to put the application in if you haven't done so already. So thanks very much, everyone. Real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
See ya. Bye.